On May 1, 1707, Scotland and England unified under a pivotal treaty of unification, leading to the formation of Great Britain. This marked the beginning of Great Britain's extensive colonial history. However, even before this unification, England had already been actively colonizing and invading territories around the world. It's important to note that the territories under British control were not always entire countries. Sometimes they were specific regions within countries, and sometimes islands. All the regions were not colonized either. British took administrative control of some regions for particular reasons without colonizing them. In 1606, King James granted a charter to the Virginia Company of London to establish colonies in North America. In May 1607, 3 ships, Susan Constant, Godspeed, and Discovery, carrying approximately 104 settlers, arrived in Virginia. The settlers chose a location on a peninsula along the James River and established Jamestown, named in honor of King James I. In 1609, a fleet of ships was heading towards the Jamestown colony in Virginia, but part of the fleet was shipwrecked on the reefs of Bermuda during a hurricane. The survivors, including Admiral Sir George Somers and Sir Thomas Gates, claimed the island for England. In 1612, the Virginia Company was granted a charter to officially colonize the island. To the southwest of Virginia, the French established a settlement on the island in 1720, which they called Ile Saint-Jean. During the 7 Years' War, British forces captured the island in 1758. Following the Treaty of Paris in 1763, Ile Saint-Jean was ceded to the British. The island was renamed Prince Edward Island in 1799 in honor of Prince Edward, Duke of Kent. To the south, Nova Scotia was ceded to Great Britain by France under the Treaty of Utrecht in 1713. To the southwest of Nova Scotia, Puritans were seeking to create a religious commonwealth, so they founded the Massachusetts Bay Colony in 1630. This settlement was led by Governor John Winthrop, and they established settlements in present-day Boston and surrounding areas. To the south of Massachusetts Bay, a group of English pilgrims established Plymouth Colony in 1620. To the north of Massachusetts Bay, Europeans led by David Thompson established a small settlement near the mouth of the Piscataqua River in 1623. It was called New Hampshire. In 1641, the settlements in New Hampshire voluntarily submitted to the jurisdiction of the Massachusetts Bay Colony. This colony grew with the passage of time and covered the modern-day state of New Hampshire. In 1679, New Hampshire became a royal colony under King Charles II. To the southwest of Massachusetts Bay, Rhode Island was founded in 1636 by Roger Williams from the Massachusetts Bay Colony. Rhode Island received a royal charter in 1663. To the northeast of Massachusetts Bay, Connecticut was initially settled by Dutch fur traders around 1614. The first major English settlements were established in 1633 by Puritans from the Massachusetts Bay Colony. This colony was officially recognized as a separate colony by the English Crown in 1662. To the southwest, New Amsterdam was originally a Dutch colony established in 1624 by the Dutch West India Company. In August 1664, an English fleet commanded by Colonel Richard Nicolls arrived at New Amsterdam and demanded the surrender of the colony. The Dutch governor initially resisted, but ultimately surrendered without significant bloodshed. The English took control of New Amsterdam and renamed it New York, in honor of the Duke of York, who later became King James II. To the south, New Jersey was seized by the English from the Dutch during the Second Anglo-Dutch War. King Charles II granted the territory between the Hudson and Delaware rivers to his brother, the Duke of York. The Duke of York subsequently granted the land to 2 loyal supporters, Sir George Carteret and Lord John Berkeley. In 1674, New Jersey was divided into 2 distinct proprietary colonies, East Jersey and West Jersey. East Jersey was granted to Sir George Carteret, covering the northeastern part of the colony, while West Jersey was granted to Lord John Berkeley, covering the southwestern part of the colony. In 1702, due to administrative challenges, the proprietors of both colonies surrendered their rights to the British Crown, moving to the southwest. In 1681, King Charles II granted a royal charter to William Penn. In 1682, Penn arrived in Pennsylvania and founded the city of Philadelphia. Moving south, Maryland was founded and established by Lord Baltimore as a proprietary colony in 1634. The first settlers landed at St. Mary's City. The colony was named after Queen Henrietta Maria. With the eastern border of Maryland, Delaware was initially colonized by the Swedish as part of New Sweden in 1638, with the establishment of Fort Christina, present-day Wilmington. In 1664, the English took over the region. Moving south. In 1663, King Charles II granted a charter to 8 English noblemen, which gave them rights to a vast tract of land south of Virginia. This was called Carolina. The first permanent settlement was established in 1670 at Albemarle Point. Then in 1712, this region was divided into North and South Carolina, with the southwestern border of Carolina. In 1732, King George II granted a charter to James Oglethorpe and a group of trustees to establish and govern a new colony named Georgia for 21 years. Oglethorpe arrived in 1733 and established the city of Savannah. With the southern border of Georgia, Florida was the oldest European settlement in North America, established by the Spanish in 1565. In 1763, Florida was ceded to Great Britain by Spain. In 1648, a group of English Puritans and adventurers from Bermuda, known as the Eleutheran Adventurers, established a colony on the island of Eleuthera in search of religious freedom. During the late 17th and early 18th centuries, the Bahamas became a haven for pirates, including the infamous Blackbeard and Henry Jennings. In 1718, the British Crown established the Bahamas as a royal colony. In the southeast of the Bahamas, in 1512, Spanish explorer Juan Ponce de Leon was the first European to sight the Turks and Caicos Islands. In the 1760s, British loyalists settled in the islands. The islands were formally annexed by Britain in 1799 as part of the Bahamas colony. In 1848, they became a separate colony under British administration. Moving south of the Bahamas. In 1654, Oliver Cromwell, the Lord Protector of England, launched a military campaign aimed at capturing Spanish territories in the Caribbean. In May 1655, an English fleet landed at Santiago de la Vega and captured the island from the Spanish. This island was named Jamaica, moving southwest. By the 1670s, British settlers, known as Baymen, began to establish more permanent settlements in modern-day Belize. In 1798, the Spanish made their last attempt to expel the British from Belize, leading to the Battle of St. George's Caye. The Baymen successfully defended their settlement. In 1862, the British government formally declared the settlement a British colony named British Honduras. Moving southeast of Belize. This region was inhabited by the indigenous Mosquito people, who formed alliances with the British. In 1740, the Mosquito King formally placed the kingdom under British protection. Moving northeast of Belize, the British Virgin Islands were first encountered by Europeans when Christopher Columbus sighted them on his second voyage in 1493, naming them Santa Ursula y las 11,000 Virgenes, after Saint Ursula and her 11,000 virgins. In the early 17th century, the Dutch established a small settlement on Tortola, one of the largest islands in the group. In 1672, during the Third Anglo-Dutch War, the English seized control of the Dutch settlement on Tortola. The English also took control of other nearby islands, including Anegada and Virgin Gorda. In the northwest of the British Virgin Islands, in 1503, Christopher Columbus discovered the Cayman Islands. The British took formal control in 1670 under the Treaty of Madrid, which ceded the islands to England. In 1734, the first permanent settlement was established by settlers from Jamaica. In 1959, the Cayman Islands became a separate colony. Moving southeast of the British Virgin Islands, in 1623, an English explorer, Sir Thomas Warner, established the first permanent English settlement in the Caribbean on St. Kitts. In 1628, settlers from St. Kitts, under the command of Thomas Warner, founded a colony on the neighboring island of Nevis. The Treaty of Utrecht in 1713 and the Treaty of Paris in 1783 consolidated British control over the islands. Moving north. In 1650, English settlers from St. Kitts established the first European colony on the island of Anguilla. The island became a part of the British colonial empire. Moving south. In 1636, the Dutch West India Company established a settlement on the island of St. Eustatius, also known as Statia. In 1781, during the Fourth Anglo-Dutch War, British forces under Admiral Rodney captured St. Eustatius, but the island was returned to the Dutch in 1784 following the Treaty of Paris. In the west of Anguilla in 1671, the Danish West India Company claimed St. Thomas and began colonizing the island. In 1801, during the Napoleonic Wars, the British briefly occupied St. Thomas. The British returned the island to Denmark in 1802, but reoccupied it from 1807 to 1815. After the defeat of Napoleon, St. Thomas was returned to Danish control. In the southwest of Anguilla, in 1625, European settlers arrived on St. Croix for the first time. Settlers established both Dutch and English settlements on the island. However, the island's control changed hands multiple times. In southeast Anguilla, in 1632, a group of English settlers led by Sir Thomas Warner, who had previously been involved in the settlement of St. Kitts and Nevis, established a colony on Antigua. Meanwhile, on Barbuda, the first permanent settlement was established in 1685 by the Codrington family, who were granted a lease by the British Crown. Moving southwest, in 1632, a group of Irish Catholics from St. Kitts, led by Anthony Brisket, established the first permanent English settlement in Montserrat. The settlers included both English and Irish people. Moving south, Dominica, Grenada, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Trinidad and Tobago were acquired by Britain through military conquest during the 7 Years' War and were formally ceded to Britain by the Treaty of Paris in 1763. Moving northeast, in 1625, an English ship captained by John Powell landed on Barbados, claimed the island for England, and named it Los Barbados, which means the Bearded Ones. In 1627, Captain Henry Powell, John Powell's brother, arrived in Barbados and established the first permanent settlement at Jamestown, modern-day Holetown, moving northwest. In 1660, the French signed a treaty with the Carib people, allowing them to establish a settlement on the island of St. Lucia. By 1674, St. Lucia was officially claimed as a French colony, becoming part of the French colonial empire. The late 17th and 18th centuries saw St. Lucia change hands multiple times between the French and the British. The British ultimately gained control of St. Lucia in 1814 following the Treaty of Paris. Moving south of St. Lucia, the Dutch established the first European settlements in the early 17th century, creating colonies named Essequibo, Berbice, and Demerara. In 1796, during the Napoleonic Wars, the British temporarily seized these Dutch colonies. The Treaty of Paris in 1814 formally ceded the colonies to Britain, which merged them into a single entity known as British Guiana in 1831. Moving further south, in 1764, the French established the first settlement on East Falkland, calling it Port Louis. From 1765 to 1766, the British, unaware of the French presence, established their own settlement on West Falkland, naming it Port Egmont. In 1767, Spain purchased the French settlement and expelled the British from Port Egmont in 1770. Britain re-established its claim in 1771, but the settlement was later abandoned in 1774 for economic reasons. In 1833, the British reasserted their claim to the Falkland Islands. Guyana and the Falkland Islands were the only territories that remained under the British in South America. Now let's move towards Canadian land. On May 2, 1670, the Hudson's Bay Company was founded when King Charles II granted the company exclusive rights to trade and establish settlements in the Hudson Bay watershed, an area referred to as Rupert's Land. This included all the land whose rivers and streams drained into Hudson Bay, covering parts of present-day Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, Ontario, Quebec, Nunavut, the Northwest Territories, Yukon, and parts of British Columbia. In the southeast of Hudson Bay, in 1583, Sir Humphrey Gilbert formally claimed Newfoundland for England under the authority of Queen Elizabeth I, declaring it the first English possession in North America. In 1763, Labrador formally became part of the British colonies in North America after the Treaty of Paris. I tried my best to cover all the areas that the British colonized, but still, if I missed something, mention it in the comments, and please like and subscribe.